Good to see you again. This is ARIRANG News live from our studio in Seoul. I'm Laah Hyun-kyung. North Korea says the U.S. sanctions against the regime are a typical way of Washington showing hostility against Pyongyang. South Korea is still waiting to hear back from North Korea on whether the two Koreas will sit down for talks this year. For this report, here's Connie Lee.
South Korea aims to push ahead with plans for inter-Korean talks, despite the recent flare-up in tension between North Korea and the United States. The spokesperson from Seoul's unification ministry says its proposal for high-level talks with Pyongyang remains on the table, despite Washington's announcement of sanctions against the North. The country's state-run media lashed out at the U.S. on Sunday, saying the new sanctions clearly demonstrate Washington's hostility toward the regime.
The policy persistently pursued by the U.S. to stifle North Korea, groundlessly stirring up bad blood towards it, would only harden its will and resolution to defend the sovereignty of the country.
The U.S. has slapped new sanctions on 3 North Korean organizations and 10 individuals for Pyongyang's alleged cyber attack on Sony Pictures, which produced the film The Interview, a comedy about an assassination attempt on North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. However, as North Korea intensified its rhetoric against the U.S., the communist state has not criticized the South as usual with verbal attacks. Pyongyang's main newspaper, the Rodong Sinmun, reported no criticism of Seoul on Sunday, and North Korea's propaganda website 우리 민족끼리 stated that the two Koreas should work together. Experts say North Korea has a motive.
By improving relations with South Korea, North Korea wants to show that the U.S. sanctions will be ineffective.
In the meantime, South Korea continues to wait on North Korea to respond to its earlier proposal for talks. Connie Lee, ARIRANG News.
Meanwhile, a U.S. congressman says the new sanctions on North Korea will not deter cyber attacks from the regime. Senator Robert Menendez, the chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, told CNN that there needed to be real consequences for Pyongyang's actions. He also took issue with President Barack Obama calling the hack an act of cyber vandalism. Menendez said it was a clear-cut case of terrorism. The senator also sent a letter to U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry asking that North Korea be added back to the list of state-sponsored terrorists. In the meantime, humanitarian aid to the north from South Korea is becoming a bit more flexible. A private organization sent 20 tons of sweet potatoes to the North Korean city of Sinŭiju at the end of last month after receiving permission from the government. It represents the first time since President Park took office nearly 2 years ago that aid in the form of raw produce has been allowed across the border. The government had been limiting support over worries that other supplies may be used for military purposes, but the Unification Ministry says they have recently relaxed their standards. Japan is upping its campaign and education that Korea's Dokdo Island is Japan's territory. This, as Japan is poised to expand an investigation on developing energy sources in the East Sea. Son Jung-in has the story.
This is a video released by the Japanese government titled "Islands Once the Home of Mechi or Sea Lions." The author of a book with the same title teaches elementary school students that Korea's easternmost islets of Dokdo, Takeshima as it's known in Japan, was the habitat of sea lions where Japanese fishermen used to catch fish.
Children playing with sea lions dreamed of becoming a fisherman so they could catch fish in Takeshima.
The 17-minute-long video was uploaded onto YouTube by an office affiliated to the Japanese cabinet. It will be used as elementary school material to teach children that Dokdo is Japanese territory.
Japan's Takeshima is waiting for us beyond the waves.
The Japanese government has been intensifying its history distortion by making unjustified claims to Dokdo. In 2013, Tokyo distributed a video claiming sovereignty over Korea's islets, and last year it stated in elementary school textbooks that Korea is illegally occupying the territory.
In 1905, the Japanese government reaffirmed its intention to claim sovereignty over Takeshima by a cabinet decision.
It's not stopping there either. Along with its persistent promotional activities, Japan is also aiming to secure the abundant resources the islets offer. Tokyo plans to invest some $18 million to carry out research on methane hydrate in the East Sea. Studies suggest some 600 million tons of the future energy resource is located around Dokdo. 손정인, 아리랑 뉴스.
And staying with the issue, if you click on the Korean map of the CIA World Factbook today, you will have a hard time finding Dokdo Island. But when you click on the Japanese map, you will find them marked as the Liangcourt Rocks. Up until now, the CIA had included Dokdo in both versions of the map and said both Seoul and Tokyo claimed the rocky islets, which have been Korea-controlled since 1954. The CIA has provided no indication as to why the change was made, but analysts believe it may have come as the result of lobbying by Japan, which has been trying to assert its claims to Dokdo through the international community. The birth of ramyeon in Korea came with Samyang foods in the 1960s. It was considered an instant and quite cheap way to substitute a meal. But that image has been slowly changing, with more Korean firms trying to tap into overseas markets. For more on the country's instant noodle market, here's Shin Se-min.
The average Korean slurps up on 74 packets of ramyeon or instant noodles every year. Now that breaks down to 1 packet every 5 days. Now Korean ramen companies are exporting their products to every corner of the world so you can have a taste of Korean ramyeon. 3 minutes is all you need to get it ready. Widely known for being packed with calories and carbohydrates, but still loved by the masses, Korean ramyeon is embedded in the culture. The concept of ramyeon was first introduced by Samyang Foods in the early 1960s as a means to feed those suffering from food shortages. The packet with high nutrition was a quick solution to many Koreans' malnourished stomachs. In the 60 years since, ramyeon has become a comfort food for many Koreans.
It's a little fattening, but it's hard to resist, so I keep coming back.
It's convenient and tasty. I think I eat ramyeon 2 or 3 times a week, and I'm not sick of it at all.
The flavor of ramyeon can be played around with. It's spicy and you can add in vegetables or seafood for a different taste. It's one of the reasons many consumers like Korean ramyeon.
Domestically, the ramen market grew to $1.8 billion, up 500 million in just past 5 years. Korean ramen makers didn't stop there. They're expanding overseas. The noodles can now be found in some 120 countries worldwide.
Ramyeon itself takes up 18% of all agricultural and food exports. A lot of factors come into play. The Korean wave is one. It caught on in the Chinese market, which is now the largest overseas consumer of Korean ramyeon.
The road to success hasn't been without obstacles. Various regulations in certain countries once kept ramen makers out of foreign markets. Take Turkey, for example. Samyang was barred from introducing its ramen product in the country due to Turkish regulations on the labeling of GMO food products. And in the U.S., strict food import regulations that contain beef hindered the export of Korean-made ramyeon. But that problem was solved by setting up a local factory.
Reaching out to different markets is always a challenge, but we continue to explore customers with different backgrounds. For instance, we are working on entering the African and European markets now.
Samyang Food Corporation wants ramyeon to become a household name throughout the world. And until the company is able to bypass the obstacles to entering the untapped markets, their experimentations with the flavors of Korean ramyeon that will suit foreign palates is an ongoing project. Shin Se-min, ARIRANG News.
The amount of investment coming into Korea from abroad reached $19 billion in 2014. Government officials attribute the record-breaking figure to relaxed regulations and more opportunities to explain Korea's merits to the heads of foreign investment firms. For more, here's Song Ji-sun.
Seoul proved to be an attractive investment destination for foreign investors last year, thanks to a wider network of free trade deals and government support for direct investment. According to the Trade Ministry on Monday, total foreign direct investment came to $19 billion last year, up more than 30% from a year earlier, and topping the previous record set in 2012. By region, investment from China soared nearly 150% to $1.2 billion. China's investment portfolio is diverse as well, ranging from resort complexes to cultural contents and fashion. Investment from the U.S. also edged up, reflecting the economic recovery there, but the amount from Japan shrunk due to the weakening Japanese yen. Foreign direct investment rose across all sectors from manufacturing to services, especially in parts production and business consulting. The Trade Ministry said an easing of regulations, coupled with a boost in investment sentiment following recent FTAs, encouraged foreign investors to increase their input in Korea. Seoul is now looking to top the $20 billion mark in foreign direct investment in 2015. Song Ji-sun, ARIRANG News.
Foreign investors made net purchases of about $5.3 billion on the Korean bourse last year. The Korea Exchange says overseas investors spent heavily on electronics and financial stocks and sold big on chemicals and logistics shares. Samsung Electronics shares were the most purchased at nearly $3.6 billion, followed by SK Hynix. Foreign investors offloaded Naver, the country's #1 portal, with a net sell-off of $1.3 billion. Foreign ownership accounts for about 34% of local stocks on the main bourse as of the end of last year. That's down about 1.2 percentage points from a year ago. A Korean business center will be set up in Beijing to support Korean tech firms entering the Chinese market. The Science Ministry says the Korea Innovation Center, which will be up and running by the end of the year, will help domestic startups and businesses commercialize their new technologies in China. The ministry will also work with the Korea-China Science and Technology Cooperation Center, which is also located in Beijing. China will become the third country where such center is established, following those set up in the U.S. and Belgium over the past couple of years. Another one is expected to open in Moscow in the near future. Now, the number of jobs created last year hit a record high not seen since 2002 here in Korea, but concerns mount as most of that number entails part-time contract workers and more positions for the 50s and 60s rather than for the younger workforce. Connie Kim has the details.
Statistics Korea says an average of 543,000 new jobs were created each month between January and November of 2014, which is the highest in 12 years. The country's employment rate also topped 65% last year, up nearly a percentage point from the previous year. And while the figures are encouraging, the state of the employment market is not. Young people in their 20s and 30s continue to struggle to find work. 20-somethings took up just over a tenth of those who got new jobs last year. Those in their 30s fared worse, recording an average 20,000 less jobs per month. In contrast, people in their 50s and 60s accounted for more than 4/5 of new jobs created in the 11 months. Compounding concerns is the fact that more than a third of the labor market, more than 6 million people, are contract workers. And to tackle that issue, the government has proposed plans to improve working conditions for them. This includes extending the contract period for temporary workers who are 35 and older to 4 years from the current 2. Analysts have also called for fundamental reforms to the current wage system that hands out raises to individuals based on how long they've been working, regardless of the quality of their work. The OECD says Korea has the 6th most complicated procedures among member countries for laying off a regular worker. Connie Kim, ARIRANG News.
Credit card spending in Korea is expected to top 700 trillion won, or around $634 billion this year. According to data compiled by KB Financial Group's think tank, that's an increase of roughly $9 billion from last year. The group said despite the increased use, local credit card firms may not see their profitability improve this year, largely due to a continued drop in spending by individual cardholders. Most Koreans use multiple cards, which has helped boost private spending in the past few years. Last year was not a good year for the nation's shipbuilding industry, as increasing threats from competitors coupled with falling oil prices continue to hamper growth. But experts are not so hopeful about this year either. Park Ji-won reports.
Korea's major shipbuilders had a pretty tough time in 2014. Out of the country's three major players, only Daewoo Shipbuilding and Marine Engineering hit its order target last year. It received orders for 68 ships and an offshore plant. Korea's other major players, Hyundai Heavy Industries and Samsung Heavy Industries, both failed to hit their targets. Hyundai Heavy Industries had orders for 98 vessels worth more than $15 billion, but this was way below its goal of $25 billion. Market experts partly attribute last year's weak performance to falling global oil prices, which negatively affected demand for offshore plants and drill ships. Market uncertainties are expected to hamper business this year as well. The Export-Import Bank of Korea forecasts vessel and marine plant orders to drop 12% this year compared to last year. Tough competition from competitors in China and Japan also poses a threat to the nation's shipbuilders. While Chinese shipbuilders have a market edge in producing small and mid-sized low-price vessels, Japan is gaining price competitiveness due to the weak yen. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
One of the world's biggest tech gadget fairs, the Consumer Electronics Show, will kick off in Las Vegas this week. Ahead of the event, our Kim Young-gil takes a look at what Korea's tech giants have in store.
The 2015 Consumer Electronics Show that kicks off on Tuesday in Las Vegas is a showground for the latest advancements in TV technology. For Samsung Electronics and LG, that means showing off its quantum dot and OLED televisions. The quantum dot technology uses tiny nanocrystals that can provide a wider range of colors than OLED screens, with a much cheaper manufacturing process. Both Samsung and LG are slated to introduce their respective 65-inch versions in Vegas. Samsung's quantum dot TV has already won the CES Innovation Award. OLED televisions will also have a place at the table. LG is showcasing its first curved 55-inch ultra-high definition OLED TV at CES. It comes with a price tag of $3,500. There's also speculation that Samsung will use the Consumer Electronics Show to show off its Tizen TVs. The company plans to run the Tizen operating system on all of its smart, internet-connected TVs starting this year. It will come with several new features, including easier sharing between TV sets and mobile phones through a redesigned interface. Kim Young-gil, ARIRANG News.
Bringing you the fresh updates from stories breaking in Korea and abroad. We give you a bigger and better picture of the world. Join Laah Hyun-kyung live from Seoul. Every weekday, only on ARIRANG.
We are now into week 2 of search efforts for the missing AirAsia plane that disappeared over the Java Sea. Divers have resumed their salvage operation as weather conditions improved on this Monday. They will try to locate the plane's black box as well as its fuselage, where most of the 128 people still unaccounted for are believed to be. 4 bodies were recovered on Sunday, bringing the count to 34. Sonar technology located 5 large objects in the search zone, including one measuring 18 meters long. Indonesia's weather agency said that the plane's engine may have stalled due to icy conditions in the air, citing initial analysis. Now, Pope Francis has named a group of 20 new cardinals, several of them hailing from developing countries. Myanmar, Tonga, and Cape Verde saw clergy named to cardinal posts for the first time. There were also appointees from New Zealand, Ethiopia, and Panama, representing nearly every continent on the globe. At St. Peter's Square, Pope Francis said the group, 15 of whom are younger than 80, which means they are eligible to vote for the next pontiff, showed, quote, the inseparable tie with the Church of Rome to churches in the world. The nominees will be formally installed on February 14th following a meeting of all sitting cardinals, reform of the Vatican's administrative body, or the Roman Curia. A Korean healthcare worker who was exposed to the Ebola virus while treating a patient in Sierra Leone has tested negative in an initial blood test. The medic, whose identity remains confidential, was flown to a hospital in Berlin over the weekend. Officials say the person is not showing any symptoms yet, but will remain under observation for the virus's incubation period of 3 weeks. The worker suffered an injury with a hypodermic needle while collecting blood from an Ebola patient in Sierra Leone. Korea's foreign ministry says it will stay in close consultation with the hospital and the German government over the next few weeks. In the meantime, fears are rising that Korea could be facing another foot and mouth disease crisis, as there have been more than 30 confirmed cases around the country since last month. The Agriculture Ministry ordered emergency vaccinations be given to livestock in areas where the disease has been reported. During an emergency meeting on Sunday, officials also discussed whether to start sterilizing vehicles that pass through infected areas. A final decision on that matter has yet to be made. The latest outbreak comes after Korea regained its status as a nation free of foot and mouth disease last year. And now, shifting gears a bit, one of the forefathers of Korean contemporary art was an artist by the name of Kim Byung-gi. For more on him and his exhibition, here's our Im Yoon-hee.
At almost 100 years old, painter Kim Byung-gi is one of the oldest painters in Korea. Yet he still burns with passion for his work.
From now on and for the rest of my life, I will be closer to the audience, at least for whatever life I have left.
The exhibition at the Gwacheon branch of the National Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art looks back at the past 60 years of the artist. Their works that define Kim as an artist, famous for balancing contrasting ideas.
My work contains both the East and the West. It's shapeless, but defined.
100 of Kim's works take the audience through decades of his life as an artist and also as a major force of movement in Korean contemporary art. Im Yoon-hee, ARIRANG News.
Good afternoon, I'm Michelle Park here with the latest weather forecast. It's partly cloudy today with a bit of fog, but we're enjoying these mild temperatures that are well above the seasonal averages. That said, more clouds are expected to move in throughout the day, and we'll have rain this evening in most regions, whereas in Gangwon-do, the precipitation will come down as snow. On top of all that, we're seeing somewhat high levels of fine dust. Now, most regions can expect readings between 80 and 150 micrograms per cubic meter, which is about 3 to 4 times higher than the normal. And the levels have risen for Seoul and are currently up at 93 micrograms per cubic meter, which is expected to go up even higher throughout the day, so keep an eye on the index readings. And now taking a look at our readings for today, Seoul will peak up to 8 this afternoon, while the southern cities such as Gwangju and Busan will be reaching warm at 12 and 15 degrees. And moving over to other regions, Jeju Island gets up to 18, Dokdo hits down to 10, while Mankungang reaches down to 4 degrees. Well, that's all for now, Michelle Park, and here's a look at the weather conditions around the world.
And that does it for this edition of our newscast. Thanks for watching. We'll be back with more updates at 6 p.m. Korea time.